Lina is running for Harris County Judge. But before we get started with the program, I want to let you guys know what is the title of the program today. We are trying our best, folks, to activate all progressives, all Democrats, all thinking Republicans. Why? Because we are at a point in time where we have a clear and present danger, not only in the White House, but in the state houses, but in the county houses, and everywhere else. It is something that has to be mitigated. Today, candidate for county judge, Lina Hidalgo, visits why, and the other topic we'll be covering also is why every progressive must vote. Subtitle: Harris County, Texas County Judge candidate discusses her race. How does this reflect America as a whole? Here, 25 reasons why every progressive must vote. Today, we have a special guest. After our guest, the blog of the week will discuss those 25 reasons why we all must vote. Lina Hidalgo is a Democratic nominee for Harris County Judge, an executive position that controls the budget for our Harris County, the third largest county in America. Folks, that is an impressive and important position. If you have any calls for her, you know the number to call as well. Lina was born in Colombia when the drug war raged and kidnapping were rampant. As they left their home, Lina's parents had two goals: to get the family to a safer place, to make sure that Lina and her brother had a good education. Immigrating to Harris County as a child, Lina is a proud product of Texas public schools and studied political science at Stanford University. Lina has always been committed to giving back. She has dedicated her work in life to our most vulnerable communities, from her time at the Texas Civil Rights Project to serving as a Spanish-English medical interpreter at the Texas Medical Center and supporting immigrants in search of lost loved ones. From her early childhood in South America and Mexico to her years in Texas public schools and her time working with nonprofits at home and abroad, Lina has been up close with what happens when societies tolerate corruptions and disparity. She'll fight to combat both. Lina Hidalgo, welcome aboard. How are you doing today?
Doing great. So happy to be here.
Absolutely. So, Lina, you decided to take on a very important position. This is a position in counties all over Texas, all over the country. Tell me, why did you choose this specific position that you're choosing, which is county judge?
So the first thing I have to mention is what exactly the position is. I've learned most people don't know what the position actually does. The county judge, along with the commissioner's court, helps control the budget for our enormous county. And the incumbent is at Emmett, whom folks see on TV when there's a flood, but the job is actually to manage the budget, even when it's not raining, so we don't flood in the first place, so that we've got adequate transportation. They have managed the budget for the hospital district, toll road authority, flood control or not. They're going to be managing the funds coming in from the federal government from Harvey recovery. So it's incredibly important. It flies under the radar. And I decided to run because I wanted to help our most vulnerable communities. I knew we could do better. We had two 500-year floods in 2 years by the time Donald Trump was elected, and nobody at the county seemed to be doing anything about it. And I had seen how our criminal justice system was broken, how our mental health system was broken, and I decided, as many women across the country, to step in and run, and now we're doing great and hoping to get in there come November with everyone's support.
Now, Lina, I want to play devil's advocate here. Your opponent is a well-known person. Your opponent is an established man who has run this county with a iron fist for a very long time. Why do you think a fairly young woman is going to come here and unseat him and do a better job? Please tell me why. What gave you the impression that you could possibly do that?
People know we can do better. So, from just a principle standpoint, of course, 40 years in politics got us somebody who couldn't figure out we needed flood control until we had Hurricane Ike and the Memorial Day flood and the Tax Day flood and Harvey and $125 billion in losses. So what we need is a strong moral compass, somebody who will put the community ahead of the interests that pay to play. And I've got that moral compass. Of course, I've managed people and the budget, and I've worked with folks who are incarcerated, with folks who, for whom the emergency room at Ben Taub is their health care access, and for whom the jail is their mental health access. And that is the role of the county, is to manage institutions that deal with the most vulnerable people. That's the work I've done. Looking at the numbers, of course, in the primary, we flipped the seat already. We got almost 10,000 more votes and a higher percentage of the vote than the 10-year incumbent. A higher percentage of Democrats voted for us than Republicans voted for him. So he is not as well known as people think. Maybe people recognize his name, but the truth is people have no idea. We did a poll. People were evenly split when we gave them options about what is the role of the county judge. There's not been a concerted effort to inform folks of this position that spends their property taxes and makes decisions that affect the lives of thousands of families. So that is one of my platform points, of transparency, and that's why we need a change.
Now, before I get into the specifics of your platform, I want to kind of discuss these social type issues. When I say that, I mean as somebody coming in to fight an incumbent like Ed Emmett, which is a person that you're running against. There is a certain amount of gravity from even Democrats themselves. Democrats have Democrats in general, Harris County Democrats in particular, have a tendency to believe at certain times that, well, this particular Republican guy is a good guy and he merits us taking a look at him. Why don't you dispel the belief that anybody at this point in our history, at anybody in this point in time, really should be, why is it that they shouldn't be, again, now considering any Republican at all, simply because of, again, the allegiance not only to the president, but also the baggage that comes with that title in our time?
Of course. Well, I'll talk about three issues. One of them is, of course, the separation of families, which has been tragic and painful for everyone to watch. Anybody who heard the audio of that child being torn away from her parents and knows that is just wrong from a moral level. And of course, a center was being proposed at the heart of our county. We have 6 centers for children, immigrant children in Harris County, which we don't talk about. And those are the times when we need our leaders to stand up and fight and stand up for our community, for our children and our family that's being torn apart. So that's my commitment. I think if the leader of the largest county in Texas refuses to speak out when families are being torn apart and the center for children, separated children, is being proposed, then we know we need a different leader. The other issue I'll talk about is the jail. We have the distinction of having the largest mental health facility in Texas in Harris County. It's the Harris County Jail. It's been the Harris County Jail. We have discussed small projects, pet projects for which you have to be arrested first to qualify. And again, if we look at the results, we need an absolute shift in the way we think about business at the county. We have to look at results. We have to be smart, and we can't let people behind. So that's why we need a change. Regardless of who the Republican is, the results show that for the sake of our community, we have to and we can do better.
Well, it's amazing because many times we will have our Republican friends try to throw some of the policies that Democrats support as being bad. The thing about it is, how do you call a policy bad if you don't have anything in return to offer, or you don't have an alternative to offer? Now, Harris County has a very important distinction in the way it handles health care, the county health care system. What are your plans for that?
So the first thing is streamlining. We have got to see healthcare as holistic. By now, everyone has recognized that healthcare is not just you showing up to the doctor and getting medicine as treatment for an issue you have. Take diabetes, for example. I worked with a woman as an interpreter whose young son was pre-diabetic. He was with a pediatrician. The pediatrician gave her a list of foods that she should feed him, and she couldn't reach grocery stores that offered that. She had already, she had to work so many jobs. She didn't have a place to put her son while she was at work where he could be well and safe and fed adequate food, for example. So it reminds us that healthcare is also about housing. It is also about transportation so that people are able to go to the doctor, because before an issue becomes a crisis, that it is also about food deserts and food swamps and about encouraging communities that serve everyone and every need. So I will look at it in that way. In the mental health side, of course, I'm happy to talk about that too, but there's a lot that we can do, mostly around streamlining. The county is the umbrella organization for 34 cities, 26 school districts, numerous private and public healthcare providers. And there has been a very serious study done where they've figured out that the first step we had to do to address mental health at the county was not so much throw a lot of money at the problem, but actually work to coordinate all of those different services so that folks could go in to the doctor and see they have their mental health treated at the same time, so that the different institutions can qualify for limited funds and advocate for limited funds together, so that we are identifying issues as early as possible by working with our schools. So a lot of it is just sitting down and looking at the problem holistically instead of in these silos that have existed simply because there's been an ossification at the county, a sense that this is how things are done and this is how things should continue to be done.
Now, have you been in your encounters as you go through the county and explain exactly what a county judge does? Did you find that people were looking at people were able to discern the differences in what you bring and what you would bring and what he has brought?
Of course, first I have to explain to people what it is and who it is. It's, no one sees him outside of when it rains. So that's the first distinction, is transparency. It's a county judge that you can feel, that you can hear all the time, not only when there's a hurricane. The second issue I hear about a lot is public transportation. Do we need to be the last modern community without a true public transportation system? The county's got a mobility fund. We're about to get more seats on the board of Metro after the 2020 census, and we have to prioritize that as opposed to building roads that encourage development where we know we shouldn't build, where we know it increases flooding downstream. So that's another point. And we talk a lot about proactive leadership, whether it's the maternal mortality rate, whether it's building inside the reservoirs, whether it's school shootings. We have gun shows without background checks at county facilities. There is work that the county can do proactively. So it's this distinction between waiting for there to be a crisis, a body count, international attention, or getting ahead of the issues so that we're preventing, costs us less money, we're much smarter, and we're ahead instead of trailing behind other communities.
We're speaking to Lina Hidalgo, who is the Democratic nominee for Harris County Judge. Now, Lina, there were studies in the 90s that predicted exactly what Harvey did. There were plans to build tunnels under I-10 to take excess water out of the reservoirs into the ship channel. There is a lawyer in town, I can't remember his name right now, who has done many hydrological studies of this entire area. None of this is new. Many people who have an affinity for the current judge would tend to make one believe that this is all an accident or this is all climate change. We know part of this is in fact climate change, but all the paperwork, all the studies were there to be done. Are you ensuring, first of all, that the people out there who, again, may have, including many Democrats and progressives, who may have an affinity for this person, understand that, in effect, he simply didn't do the job. The destruction that occurred in Harris County didn't have to be?
Of course, there is an issue with climate change. The first point is calling it what it is. We can't address it if we don't accept climate change as an issue. Call it what it is. I think I'm the only candidate in the race to say climate change is happening, and that is why we are having change, rather than saying, something's happening, I'm not sure what it is. But beyond that, of course, there are steps that could have been taken. Again, a lot of it is the fact that the storms are getting worse. But for example, Addicks and Barker, we knew in 2011 the Army Corps of Engineers released an analysis that said that Addicks and Barker were two of the 6 most dangerous dams in the country, most dangerous reservoirs, at risk of catastrophic failure. It is the responsibility of our leaders to tell people, to inform them that they are at that risk. We all know people who live in the flood zone of Addicks and Barker who did not know that was the risk they were at when they purchased a home or when they decided to move there. So my commitment is to tell people of the dangers before they're here so that folks can make an informed decision. We could have worked on the tributaries around Addicks and Barker so that they weren't to alleviate some of the pressure there. But most importantly, the county has been allowing development. The county has drainage authority and it has subdivision plat authority. And it oversees drainage, anything that has to do with bayous, even within the city of Houston, outside of the city, it's drainage and subdivision plat authority. And so my commitment is to enforce that authority, to up the regulations to the extent that we need to. You will see we didn't update our regulations until this past December. After 3 500-year floods in a row, we didn't even update our flood maps until very recently, again, after 3 500-year floods in a row. So that is where, we have to think ahead and we have to look out for our community. Of course, we need to grow, but we have to grow smart. And if the government is not the one saying, listen, we can't build here unless you have adequate drainage, then who is supposed to do it? We can't expect folks to police themselves. That's the role of government, and that's where we have failed. And again, a bond election, why now? Why not call it earlier? There's just so much that could have been done. And now we have to make sure that the recovery funds are spent in the best way possible. We can't have the same folks spending the money who only called town halls this year when there was international media and the body count. We can't have the incumbent who takes 50% of contributions from county engineers and developers. That's a conflict of interest.
Now, the bonds that were approved by the citizenry that many of us pretty much some of us opposed because there was no direction for there was no direction for the money. How are you going to ensure as a commissioner? Because as it stands right now, the federal government has caused the prioritization of high-priced or high-value land or rather high-value homes, high-value whatever, to have priority given that they want more bang for the buck. How are you going to ensure that folks in these areas that have less money, the value of their homes are less than the value of the homes, let's say in the Woodlands or Kingwood or elsewhere, how are we going to know that that money is going to be split appropriately to ensure that they get coverage as well?
It's about transparency and participation. So the project list that came out of those 26 public meetings that were done is not binding. All the final decisions are made by the county commissioner's court. So my proposal is to put forth a motion that forms a citizen advisory board which has true power in which people can express their concerns and their perspective on which projects ought to be done first. Of course, some projects are already farther along simply because they've been prioritized in the past. So where we're starting anew, like Halls Bayou, folks aren't going to see results for another 4 years simply because it takes a very long time to do the project. So we have to catch up to that. And for that, I believe we need citizen input. So I commit to having town halls all across the county and to having and pushing for meaningful public input and consultation in those decisions.
Now, recently I saw an Edemit advertising on TV. Do you intend to do any TV advertising, or are you going simply grassroots?
We, of course, are proud of our grassroots effort all across the county. Yes, we are doing advertising. Folks will continue to see it soon. And but, of course, the most important help is people spreading the word. That's how we're building this movement, and people coming out to vote. Nobody can stay home. We can't wake up November 7th and wish we'd done a little bit more, and it starts with voting.
Okay, now in these final minutes or seconds, why don't you give the audience your platform, let them know exactly if they elect Lina Hidalgo, what will Lina Hidalgo do for them?
If you elect me, I will be first proactive. It will not take us a crisis to figure out we need flood control. I will think ahead and work ahead. I will be transparent. You will know what the county judge does, where the money's spent. You will see smart metrics on all our programs, the county or the jail, let's say, measured by the extent it reduces recidivism. We will collect smart metrics on disparities, and you will have easy access to your county because I will be there doing town halls year-round, not just right before the election. And finally, I'll be county judge for everyone. We cannot leave communities behind. We will be working for equity at the county and to make sure that as we spend the dollars coming in from Harvey, no community is forgotten, and we include our community instead of 5 guys in a room making decisions while everyone's at work.
Lina Hidalgo, Democratic nominee for Harris County Judge. It was my pleasure to have you on, my friend.
Thank you so much, Egberto, and encourage everyone to come and vote.
Absolutely. Everybody must go vote. Your vote, that's the only way you count. Lina, before I let you go, is there anything that you want to add that I went over? Anything else that you want to add?
Just, early voting starts October 22nd through November 2nd. Election Day, November 6th. So please make sure and come out. It is time for change at the county. We are larger than 26 states in population. We should be pulling our weight. I will share we're ahead in the polls. This is possible. And with people's help, we will get there, and we will bring proactive leadership, transparency, smart government to Harris County.
Lina Hidalgo, thank you so kindly for having been here, my friend.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure.
Bye-bye.